But what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to have our next speaker, who's Brian Reilly from Waking Up America, who came all the way out here from Phoenix, followed by Sean Porosky, an aide to Senator Tony Strickland. So now let's bring on the next speaker. Where you at, Brian? Okay, he's waiting. Very patient. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Reilly. I am with the Christian organization Waking Up America in Phoenix, Arizona. And my wife Denise and I came out to support you folks. The people in Arizona said, why are you going to California? I said, well, the last time I checked, California was still part of America, and we're all fighting the same battle. I got to tell you, though, I feel really uncomfortable without my Glock or my Colt 1911, which I carry all the time in Arizona, and I feel like I'm in a totally different country here in California. Before I came here, I made sure I checked out all the rules and regulations, and I thought I was looking at the Webster's Dictionary, trying to figure out what I could do and what I couldn't do over here. Maybe some of you are aware of the fact that in Arizona, we don't even need a concealed weapons license to carry weapons concealed. So, Waking Up America is a Christian organization consisting of Christian pastors, lay people who have gotten together, who have decided enough is enough, and we're going to stand up for our God-given rights. We encourage other pastors to get involved. We ask them to speak to their congregations, come forward, tell people about what is going on in America instead of being silent. We are facing one of the most critical times in America ever, right now. And our pastors need to stand up and speak to their congregations, get them to communicate with their legislators to bring about some form of change. When I was working with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, I was doing research on Barack Obama's birth certificate. And one of the things that I did while I was doing research was I love to do timelines, because timelines are really interesting. You can see a real pattern when you develop a timeline. Last night I was going through various books, and I wanted to go through some events that happened as a timeline to give you an idea about history that you've never probably heard. In 1770, a pastor by the name of Samuel Cook said, quote, "He that ruleth over men must be just." Do we have a just ruler right at the moment? Do we? In 1774, a pastor said, Pastor Hitchcock, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. What he did was he went on to say, society is cut from its mooring, and hate and consternation reign on every side, and all because the wicked bear rule. King George may say the evils that produce this state of things are imaginary, but I tell you, and I tell the tyrant to his face, it is because the wicked bear rule. Do you hear any pastors talking about Barack Obama and his administration in this form? No, very few. There is a church in Sun City West called Church on the Green. It's a 501c3. It's an incorporated church, but you know what? They're not afraid to talk about politics. As a matter of fact, they provided their facility when we did the March 31st press conference with Sheriff Arpaio and Mike Zullo. They provided their facility for free. We had 1,200 people show up for that press conference because the media would not give the original March 1st press conference any coverage whatsoever. I personally invited NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, Fox to come to that conference at that church. None of them showed up. And I told the people That's the very reason that we were having that presentation, because the media has hidden everything from you. Go back to my timeline. September 5, 1774, the First Continental Congress was opened in prayer, of all things. We've been told we're not a Christian nation, folks, but we are. The prayer was, quote, "Plead my cause, O Lord, with us that strive with me. Fight against them that fight against me. Take hold of a shield and buckler and stand for mine help. Draw out also the spear and also stop the way against them that persecute me. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation." This was at the First Continental Congress, folks. They were relying on God. Patrick Henry, March 20th, 1775, more timeline. He was a Christian. He stated, quote, "Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, God Almighty. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." Where do you folks want to be? Do you want liberty? Do you want freedom? You have to stand up. And one of the ways you can do it is stand up to your pastors. Get them to speak out to the congregations. And let me tell you, if your pastor says, "No, I can't do that," walk away from that church and find a pastor that will talk about it. The country is falling apart because there is no moral compass. There is nobody following the rule of law, folks. And the reason that tyrants disarm people is when people figure out that the rule of law is not being followed. And in this case, it's the Constitution. What people do is they revolt, just like they did in the 1770s. The rule of law was not being followed. You have to disarm all communists, all socialists. History is replete with communists that come to power, come to authority, and they disarm their people. You have to understand what we're fighting against. And you know what? This country was founded as a Christian nation. We had patriots that believed in God, believed in liberty. And if we want to keep our arms, we need to start thinking about turning our country back to God. Otherwise, folks, we face a very, very dark future. And two more things I want to say. I know we're short on time. There was a mention about Lexington Green. Do you realize how many of these redcoats were marching on Lexington Green? 700 of these redcoats were marching on Lexington Green. And do you realize, and you never hear this in history because it's politically incorrect, but do you realize there was a guy there by the name of Pastor Jonas Clark? The people that were in that militia were part of his congregation. And the 77 of them stood up to 700. Can we do that? The battle at Lexington Green lasted only a couple of minutes. 17 of our militiamen, our Minutemen, were either killed or wounded. They were told to lay down their arms, and they didn't. 2 minutes later, Colonel Francis Smith and the balance of his redcoats were marching on to Concord to disarm the American colonists. No different than infringing on the Second Amendment, folks. They wanted to disarm these people. They marched on. They marched on to Concord, and guess what? Another pastor with his congregation stood up, Pastor William Emerson. They stood up to the British, and he said, quote, "Let us stand our ground. If we die, let us die here." These folks loved liberty. They loved freedom, and they took a stand. These people, the British, these redcoats, were so shocked by pastors standing up and church congregations standing up, they turned and went back to Boston. By the time they made it back to Boston, 174 of the redcoats were killed. 73 were killed, 174 were wounded, and 26 were missing. What's my point in this whole thing? Pastors need to forget their 501c3. They need to forget about their contributions and the write-offs that they get for the church. They need to stop thinking about what's politically correct and speak the truth. You cannot defeat the enemy by being politically correct. You must speak the truth. The British called these pastors the Black Robe Regiment. There is a Black Robe Regiment that is forming and has been in existence for many years in America. These people are taking a stand for America. I'm encouraging you to talk to every one of your pastors, anyone that's going to church. The church has a huge influence on people. It has a huge influence on the legislature, because churches represent you. They represent people. And finally, I want to say one more thing about the pastors. In Hosea 4:6, it says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." Are your pastors teaching you? Not only are they teaching you about the gospel, but are they telling you what's going on in America? Because if they're not, they're doing you a disservice. One final thought, and I know I gotta go, and I want to thank you for listening. Again, this is another thing that's politically incorrect, and you never hear this in the public schools. You'll never hear it on the mainstream media. But when the Revolutionary War began, many of these pastors joined with George Washington to become officers. Do you know what the battle cry was for these patriots? The battle cry was, "No king but King Jesus." No king but King Jesus. It drove the British crazy. And you know what? Against the strongest military force in the world, American colonists, American farmers, American workers beat the strongest force in the entire world. The sun never sets on the British Empire. We beat them. We need to beat the wicked that exist in our government now to take back our country. Thank you very much.